Cool.
Great. Hi, Goran. How you doing? Everybody, this is Goran Stolevski, the writer-director of the extraordinary new film of an age. Thanks for joining us today, Goran.
Thanks so much, John. What a pleasure.
I really enjoyed this film. I loved how character-driven it is. But how did this project come up?
Mm. It was I was reading a short story by the writer Lauren Groff, who I love. And it was completely unrelated to what we've written in the sense that it was about an Irish boy in a small town who falls in love with a cadaver. But somehow, in the middle of reading that story, that boy goes to his first high school party. And I was halfway through the paragraph and I could not finish it because every time I reread that sentence, I would just kind of go on a tangent inside my head to the one and only party I ever went to in high school. And even though I loved that story, I just could not keep reading. I like suddenly I just had this flood of memories and not just the party in terms of what happened, but like who I was at the time and like what I thought life would be like and what my feelings were in relation to the world around me. And it was just all very, very vivid. And I don't really think back to that time almost at all. Even at the time when I was living it, I just was like thinking about what the future would be. I didn't really care so much for the present. And so in that context, I was like also thinking of who I eventually became and how, my thoughts on life shifted. And just I wanted to live in those feelings a little bit longer. And, I sort of was thinking in the context of writing a story, these two energies sort of like started forming between these two guys who were like sitting in a car, stuck in this time and place, which is Melbourne, Australia, 1999. And a lot of the dialogue in the film flooded out of me sort of in that one nighttime
Sure.
session. I just kind of wrote it in a hurry. And yeah, it's on an age now.
Great. Can you talk briefly about the characters of Cole and Adam and their unexpected courtship?
Mm. Well, again, it's that sense of 1999 specifically before technology made it easy, or maybe not easy, to connect with people who are maybe similar to you from
Yeah.
all around the world. Before there were phones and things, you could be the only gay in the village. I was very much like, I mean, I had a different trajectory to Cole. I was very much out and militant about my queerness in my final year of high school, but like I was still the only gay boy I knew. Otherwise, gay people were just on TV, not in your day-to-day life. So there was a special kind of loneliness at the time in being a queer person. And I don't say this to complain at all. Like it was just that sense of it was a reality that you couldn't really find someone you could talk with in a way you felt you would be deeply understood. So I thought, but in this context, before technology made things more accessible, if you did run into someone who you felt could understand you, like I think the electricity that happened in that meeting, like I think there was almost like, I mean, for lack of a better term, a positive outcome in the sense that it was so much more poignant.
Sure.
Two queer people in this kind of space have like a special connection and an electricity and kind of a secret that is quite sexy that like the rest of the room misses out on, even if it's crowded. And I also thought like before apps and things happened, like attention spans were longer and also circumstance. If you were stuck in a car, you couldn't just check your phone and zone out. Like circumstances forced you to engage with the person next to you. And then, if you take away instant gratification as the goal, you kind of spend more time with someone and you build a connection, you discover discover one really with someone who you would have missed out on entirely otherwise. So I really was chasing that. And I think it's a specifically kind of queer romance in many ways. Although I think those feelings of loneliness and wanting a connection and longing for it, other people can connect with as well.
Your actors, your central two actors are extraordinary. But there's such a an energy and a chemistry between them, even initially. Can you talk a little bit about finding the right actors and what they bring to their characters?
Yeah, no, it was tricky. It was tricky. Especially because I was sort of like specifically wanted to set this story in the milieu I grew up with, which was very working class suburban, and I feel like that just I never really see the working class portrayed believably on screen. I felt like I went to a state school, um, And every time I see a state school scene on TV in Australia, the characters speak like they're half British. Then I'm just like, that's just not what we sounded or look like, frankly. And it's hard to kind of convey. I mean, I think everyone should be allowed to play everyone. I'm not saying like rich kids shouldn't play poor kids, but like, I think it's really hard, especially for a younger actor, to play a life experience that is, really removed from their mind. So yeah, there was a lot of auditions with kids where like I could just see the money in their eyes, and I'm like, this is just not quite gelling together. And then Tom and Elias, Tom actually I discovered quite early through watching him in a film called Downriver, and his naturalism is what really struck me, but also the way he would kind of interact with the environment and people around him. He was like a very open actor. It wasn't a self-absorbed kind of showy acting. It was like he connected with things. And with Elias, when he came through, like there was a sense of a life lived in those eyes. And someone so young, like the sense of life lived and just sort of feelings were just flowing out of him. It wasn't like he was trying to show vulnerability or show pain. Like, often he was trying to hide pain. And it was just like so moving and hypnotic. And when they met, eventually, also like the fact that they were both very open, both as people and as actors, I think is what leads to a sort of chemistry that you see on screen. And my job was to just kind of provide an environment where they felt safe and free to like build on what's there and improvise and not like action. When I say action, it doesn't mean you start the scene. It just means we're filming, we're ready. You just wait for the feelings to come, and the words can emerge in your own time, or not emerge, or you can change them. You can reshape them. We can go back if you need to. Like they're kind of in charge of it.
Good. Were there any particular LGBTQ films or filmmakers that inspired you growing up that really wanted to emulate?
Well, Monover made me gay. Like, sincerely believe. Low desire. The poster in the background in one of the scenes. Like that's the obvious one. Like Monover is, my favorite living director, probably. Definitely. Why did I say probably? And just one of my favorite artists of all time. Virginia Woolf is not a director, but she's a queer artist I fucking worship. But actually, that's more related to the previous one than this one. Um, yeah, there's a lot. But also like Happy Together by Wong Kar-wai obviously was a key film for me because to me that was like his films are like the peak of romantic intensity I experienced in cinema screens in my own time. And I sort of wanted to see if there was a way to do that with a queer suburban story in Melbourne, like where it's the least romantic setting you could possibly have. But is it possible to still have these kinds of feelings of extreme romantic intensity, and specifically in a very like these kids connect because of like how queerness connects them as well, and to just could they feel like they were experiencing the same kind of things that Maggie Truman, Tony Loom, and Leslie Sherman, all those actors made me feel.
Exactly. I think I have time for one more quick question. How important is it for you as a gay director to tell gay positive stories?
I think it's more like gay complete stories. I really kind of get frustrated with how, Walter White in Breaking Bad can do whatever the fuck he wants, and he's just like a fascinating anti-hero, whereas I'm meant to be like a moral fucking citizen at all times, for my feelings to be valid. Like I really want to be able to be as negative and fucked up as I want. And I also think I don't want to dilute my queerness ever, but I also think being queer and having my feelings be universal is not something that is contradictory. I don't think there's nothing niche about what makes me horny or what makes me fall in love, frankly. So it's very important to me that, like especially like in an Australian context, like you know, Tarkovsky is Tarkovsky, Jane Campion is Jane Campion. I'm Goran Stolevski, the migrant gay. Like there's no way around that. It has to be in the opening sentence. And I really think the migrantness and the gayness should not make me less universal. So that's what I'm driven by.
Okay.
And also connecting with people who are not any of those things. So that, they like the amount of women that come up to me, straight women at the end of this film crying, going, how did you know my story? And I find that really moving, because it's gay as fuck. And the next one I'm doing is just as gay, if not gayer. And there'll be others after that. But I really think this should be seen as universal stories without me having to adapt or like try to pacify anyone with them.
Exactly. The film is of an age and theaters February 17th. Our writer director Goran Stolevski, thank you so much. I love the film. I'm sure a lot of people are going to like it as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jim. This was lots of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.